everyone to the Pantheon. I am Ray.
I'm Chelsey.
And today we're looking at Fantasy Island. It is the television, well, it's based on the 70s, 1977 television series starring Ricardo Montalban. It is now reimagined with a Latino Michael Pena as Mr. Rourke. This one is Blumhouse, so therefore you know there's going to be a horror element. Jason Blum loves to put his little signature onto it within the budget. So this, okay. Well, first of all, since you haven't seen the series, so going into based on the trailer, I'm guessing So what was your expectations going into this movie?
Well, I had higher expectations because Blumhouse was the producers for it, but I don't know. Like the trailer was really good. It sold you. It made you think like, oh, these people are going out on the island. I kind of thought it would be something like the first Scooby-Doo that they made. And it was pretty much the same except called Fantasy Island.
Right. Okay.
So that was my take on that.
Yeah, I came in open-minded. At least I think I came open-minded, because I knew it was going to be a horror film. Like that was how it was built. So I'm like, okay, fine. And then you wonder, okay, so Mr. Rourke, is he a good guy, bad guy? And it's really ambiguous. And the deal is, the fantasy doesn't end until it's done, complete its course. That's the trick. It has to complete its course for the fantasy to end. And I'm like, oh, okay, sure, why not? And I don't, like, in the series, you don't know where his powers comes from. He just thought he's like a mystical person, like outerworldly, but he's a good guy. In this one, it has the idea of goodness, good and bad, it's a very murky water. So you understand there's a reason why he's doing what he's doing, and that gets explained to you as the movie progresses. But I didn't. Yeah, it was pretty dark, and the use of water was very strange. Like, did you understand this? Like, it explains to you the source of the power of the island. Mm-hmm. Did you clue onto that? Did you understand that at all?
No.
Okay, I thought I was alone. So I'm like, they kind of show it to you and explain it to you, and you're like, okay, this is the theme that runs the island and what causes everything to go. And the characters, whether you live or die, this is not really giving anything away. It is powered by the island, the power of the island. And some people get hurt, some people die, it's crazy, but then people are not really dead.
Yeah, no, it was almost like not a soul or a spirit, but yeah, they were dead, but not so much gone.
So I'm thinking, because in one sense, if you were in the series, you could say, well, it's a fantasy, so they're not really alive. It's just a projection of something. It's just an alternate reality. So like when fantasy's over, everything resets itself. You would think that would be the case. You would think that would be the normal procedure. But then you're seeing, you're like, okay, well, the first thing you see is an actual physical abduction, because someone's fantasy was to have someone abducted. I mean, not intentionally abducted from their location, but the fantasy was to have this girl. It's in the trailer. So there's this girl who teased another girl, and her fantasy is to get revenge on who teased her. I mean, obviously, when we get later on into the movie, it becomes a whole different bag. But so to get this person who she teased, you think it's a fantasy. It's not the real. It's a real person, but it's not. It's a fantasy. So therefore, there's no consequence for having this.
Yeah.
But then you realize, no, it's the legitimate real girl. She was abducted for the fantasy to come to the island to do her revenge. So that's the first thing you see. You're like, oh, I didn't think it was this dark. Like I didn't think it was like this stuff. Like it was serious. Like from the moment you said go, everything was like serious. Like there's no like, oh, it's a fantasy, so there's no consequences. No, there is consequences right from the start. And the beauty of this, there is an underlining theme to all, like it's like everything's connected, and it really is. So what was your general, okay, first I just want to mention, like, okay, it was directed by Jeff Wadlaw. He did Truth or Dare, that movie.
Oh, that movie wasn't too bad.
Yeah, because it has the same girl, Lucy Hale from Pretty Little Liars.
She was in
Truth or Dare.
Are you sure?
Yeah, that was her. She was the final girl in that one.
I thought in Truth or Dare, that's where they're like, cut your eye with the razor blade, right?
Yeah, basically the demon, had to cut the tongue off of the person and had to sacrifice himself because the demon was like, truth or dare. If you don't, you die. If you don't fall.
When they're in the mansion?
No, it's like when they go to Mexico and.
Oh, okay. There's another movie called Truth or Dare,
Mhm.
and you have to like cut your eyes and like hold your head underwater and stuff. And I thought you were
Really?
talking. Yeah, that
Oh.
one is way more crazy. I don't know what you're talking
Okay,
about.
Truth or Dare. This is a Blumhouse movie, and they basically this is like a year before. Same director, almost same cast, like Lucy Hale's in it. And they go to Mexico to play Truth or Dare. So they go to this pyramid, and they do the ritual apparently, and then unlocks a demon, and it came from this demon. So if you and it pops into like any other person, whenever it's your time to do it, they see the demon in the smile of someone else.
Oh,
And yeah, and if you don't do the dare, you will die when it's your turn around.
that's nuts. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I've never seen that before.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying it's a good movie. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I like this movie, but it's the same director, Jeff Bradlaugh. He's now done this, and he's carried on with Lucy Hale. So like it's a continuation of Familiar Faces, and it's Blumhouse. So that's that. But for this movie, I kind of enjoyed this movie. I was more intrigued with like, okay, where is this going? Like the whole thing with from. I was basing everything on the trailer. Like you knew there was like a doppelganger of a girl at one point. You know there's some monster that looks burnt. You find out, and it has to do a lot with water. Water is a significant factor. That's an underlining theme for the islands. Like it's lifeblood, but how is it really working? It comes from the stone, and like I don't like. What is that? What's going on? And I'm thinking, okay, you're thinking about like Mr. Rourke from the Fantasy Island. There's a scene where people would go into hot tub water to travel back in time in the series, and that's how like they go through springs and they travel backwards into another world. Like there's one part in the series where this person wanted to find, he had to find someone trapped in. Cuba or the Amazon, whatever it is, and then it's in this water he goes into, and he arrives 20 years back in time, and surrounded by the Nazis trying to retrieve this link for this guy, right?
Oh.
And that was his mission. That was his fantasy, or one, yeah. And so like, and then the other one wanted to be like, I think in this movie, like he wanted to be a hero, like his father, you know. So like he went back in time and did some stuff. So a lot of throwbacks to this series. They kind of meshed amalgams of different stories, but made it pretty clear what you're watching. But so overall, what were your thoughts of the movie?
I would give it about a 2.5 star for me, mostly because whenever I see Blumhouse, I do have really high expectations because of how well they do deliver their movies. I think this one could have been taken a little differently. Like I said in the beginning, I took it as a spin-off of Scooby-Doo.
Right.
So it really, like, I didn't find much fear into it because when I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, like this happens and this happens. But I thought the life lesson of it was pretty good. So that's where I give it the 0.5 star.
Right.
But, yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna give this a 2.5. It wasn't scary. Like I was expecting a horror because the way it was marketed, you're thinking, oh, this is gonna be like a monster. Because there were episodes in the series. I'm going to revert to the series, but there's episodes where it was horror, and this one, it wasn't really a horror film. It's more like, okay, let's unravel this mystery, like a Scooby-Doo, of what's going on. Like, what is it? And then you have this one guy who is like, well, who played Yondu in Guardians of the Galaxy, who's this guy on the island, you know, like in the bushes. Once they get revenge on Rourke, and he kind of helps the girls out. So that's where you get the exposition of what's going on. Like, this island is not really what you want it to be. There's a trick to it. There's a catch to everything. And so for me, because I was kind of like expecting a horror, but again, I'm not a horror fan, so I'm like, okay, I'd rather go for this mystery. I'm cool with that. It's leading to something. Okay, let's go with it. Just because I'm a fan of Maggie Keefe from the Nikita series. I like the actors. I'm a fan of just about all the actors, like Michael Pena. I mean, if you watch Ant-Man, there are characters in here why I am a fan of their work, and so therefore I'm like, okay, so let's see what they are. And they're playing against type in terms of the film what you're watching. And the two friends, the brothers, the adopted brother and the brother, their storyline is unique. It's fun, and once you understand like what their backstory is, you understand like what you're really watching. So you actually become more empathetic to these characters. Mm-hmm. But in the beginning, you're like, oh, this is just a bunch of yahoos having a party. Who cares? But then there's more to it, and you kind of appreciate the story. But it's not a great movie. Even though it's Blumhouse.
I think that part for me would have been where the girl, so the one that gets abducted, is like tied down to the chair, and I was like, oh, maybe I should pay attention for this part.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and then that was about the only part that like really sold me into thinking that it'd be a horror movie, but then just kind of sizzled out.
Yeah, no, it stopped being a horror movie after that. Like once they got out of that room, it stopped being horror, and then it became an adventure, like just crazy action flick. Like my part that I kind of like, what's going on is when they start invasion. Like there's an invasion into this hacienda, the beach house, and these guys with guns coming in, and and then people start dying, but they're not dying.
Yeah.
Something else happens, and it's like, what is going on? I go, didn't you just get killed? And it's like, and then you realize, oh, okay, is this zombie time? Like, what is, like, I don't know what's going on. So I'm like, okay. And then something tragic happens, which leads into the ending. And I'm like, oh, okay. So like, like, because there's like consequences about it. You don't know what's going on. And then if the person dies in real life, like, does he die? It's like, what's going on? And then it's like, because if you come in and you die your fantasy, can you die in real? I don't know. Like, is that possible? So if they play with something, you're like, okay, this is trippy because I don't know what happened. Does your fantasy, like, when your fantasy ends, can you come back, or are you actually dead?
Yeah, like, did you just sell your soul, or?
Yeah, like, is like work the devil? Like, what's going on?
Right?
So I was like, this is crazy. And then you realize, okay, the Maggie Q character, she changes her fantasy, which is forbidden, and that kind of goes into a whole different. And then can she correct the past? Like, can she change her fantasy and correct the past? And whether she succeeds or not is kind of it's relevant, but also irrelevant. And then you're like, okay. And then, okay, so now what's going to happen? And then but the ending, did the ending bother you? Without giving away, did it? Because to me, I'm like, oh, this is just next level crazy. This, like, this. I mean, I can't give it away, but like the reveal of the connection and what is going on at the end.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's the whole point of the first part of the movie? Like this, it was like. Yeah,
I had that thought.
I'm like, if this is what you want, but no, I want to get all my hands in one basket and go, getcha. Like what? It's like, that's your fantasy. Like, and then the follow through was like, okay, I get it. So that's like, okay, yeah, fine. So it wasn't disappointing. I mean, it was thoroughly disappointing. And there's an origin of like a character, so that was interesting. And for those who are fans of the cartoon, of the TV series, you'll get that extra bonus. But if you haven't seen it, it means nothing to you. But it's just kind of cool. You just realize this is an origin of the series. If it became another movie, you'll know, okay, the next movie will be this with these characters leading the way.
Yeah.
That's all it does. But for fans who watch the series, will understand how these characters got together, or how these characters became what they are. So that's really cool. But I give it a 3. It's marketed. I think the marketing was just like, it's not a horror film.
Yeah. Even
though it's a Blumhouse film, and though it has horror elements into it, it's more of a thriller. Anything else you want to say? Just because I'm like, this is kind of interesting, but like, because there's a lot of things going on. So I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. No. Lucy Hale from Pretty Little Liars is in it, and yeah, that's all I got from that.
Okay. I will be back next time so I'm Ray.
I'm Chelsey.
I will see you next time. Take care.